Have you ever had a moment when everything around you was completely silent, but inside your mind there was a storm you couldn't control? Have you ever closed your eyes at night, hoping to finally rest, but your thoughts kept pulling you back into worries? Maybe you're tired of pretending that everything is okay. Maybe you smile in front of others, but deep inside you carry questions that nobody else can see, questions about your future, your dreams, your choices, and whether you're truly moving in the right direction. Sometimes, the hardest battles are not the ones we fight against the world. They are the silent battles, inside our own minds, the memories we cannot let go of, the fears we cannot explain, and the endless thoughts that slowly steal away our peace. So what do? We try to distract ourselves. We pick up our phones. We watch another video. We listen to another song. We keep ourselves busy, hoping the noise inside our hearts will finally disappear. But when the distractions end, the same thoughts return, and the silence feels heavier than before. If you've ever felt this way, stay with me, because today I want to share a story about a young man, a man who searched everywhere for peace, until he discovered that the place he was searching for was inside himself. Deep inside an ancient forest, far away from crowded cities, where tall pine trees touched the sky, and rivers flowed quietly through the mountains, there stood a small wooden cabin beside a crystal-clear lake. Every morning, golden sunlight passed through the trees. Birds filled the air with beautiful melodies. The gentle wind moved through the leaves, as if the entire forest was whispering a peaceful song. The lake was so calm that it reflected the clouds above like a perfect mirror. Flowers bloomed beside the water. Animals moved freely through the forest. Everything about that place felt peaceful. Anyone who visited would believe. This was a place where worries could never exist. But inside that peaceful forest, inside that small wooden cabin, lived a young man named Elias. From the outside, his life looked perfect. He had beautiful nature surrounding him. He had quiet mornings. He had many things that people often wish for. But inside his heart, Elias carried a storm made of doubts, fear, and endless questions. Every morning when he opened his eyes, his mind was already searching for problems. Before his day had even started, he was already fighting battles that nobody else could see. And the saddest part was, Elias was surrounded by peace, but he could not feel it. Because sometimes the loudest storms are not outside us. They are inside us. For many years, Elias believed that peace was something he would find in the future. He told himself, "One day when I become successful, one day when people respect me, one day when I finally achieve everything I want, then I will finally be happy." So Elias began chasing one achievement after another. He worked harder. He created bigger goals. He searched for approval from the people around him. But every time he reached something he had once dreamed about, the happiness disappeared faster than he expected. And soon, a new desire appeared, a new worry, a new reason to feel incomplete. The more Elias chased peace, the farther away it seemed. He walked through beautiful forests, but never noticed the flowers around him. He watched the sunrise, but never felt its warmth. His eyes could see the beauty of the world, but his mind was trapped somewhere else. One evening, as the golden sunlight slowly disappeared behind the mountains, Elias walked deeper into the forest. The trees became taller. The path became quieter. The sounds of the village slowly faded away. He wasn't searching for treasure. He wasn't looking for success. He was simply trying to escape the noise inside his own mind. After walking for a long time, Elias discovered a small garden hidden between the trees, and there, beside a wooden fence covered with flowers, stood an old man, peacefully watering the plants. His clothes were simple, his hands were covered with soil, but there was something different about him, something Elias had never seen before. The old man's face carried a special kind of peace, not the kind of peace that comes when life is easy, but the kind of peace that comes when someone has learned how to face life's difficulties. Elias stood quietly for a moment, simply watching him. Finally, he gathered the courage to speak. "Excuse me, can I ask you something?" The old gardener looked at him and smiled. Elias asked, "How are you so calm? How can you look so peaceful when life is filled with problems?" The old gardener did not answer immediately. Instead, he looked toward the lake. Then he picked up a small wooden bucket and slowly walked toward the water. Elias followed him silently, wondering what lesson this old man was about to teach him. The old gardener reached the edge of the lake and carefully filled the wooden bucket with fresh, crystal-clear water. The water was so clear that Elias could see the reflection of the sky gently dancing across its surface. The old man placed the bucket on the ground and looked at Elias with a peaceful smile. The gardener picked up a small wooden stick without saying a single word. He placed it into the bucket and slowly began stirring the water, round and round. The clear water started to move. The peaceful reflection disappeared. The dirt resting quietly at the bottom slowly rose to the surface. Within moments, the water that had once been crystal clear became cloudy and dark. Elias stared at the bucket in confusion. Just a few seconds earlier, he could see everything clearly, but now the reflection had completely disappeared. The old gardener looked at Elias and asked, "Can you see your reflection now?" Elias leaned closer and looked carefully into the bucket, but all he could see was muddy water. He slowly shook his head. "No," he whispered. The old gardener smiled. Then he gently placed the bucket beside the lake and said only one word, "Wait." Elias frowned. Wait? That's the answer. After all his searching, after all his worries, after everything he had been through, the lesson was simply to wait. The old gardener sat beneath a large tree. Elias quietly sat beside him. Neither of them spoke. For the first time in a very long time, Elias had nothing to chase, nothing to prove, nothing to fix. He simply sat there and waited. At first, the silence felt uncomfortable. Elias wasn't used to silence. His mind was always searching for something. A problem to solve, a mistake to replay, a future to worry about. But little by little, something began to change. The wind became softer, the leaves became still, and the muddy water, slowly, began to clear. Elias watched quietly as the dirt slowly settled back to the bottom of the bucket. The water that had looked so disturbed was becoming clear again. Nothing had been added, nothing had been removed, nothing had been forced. The water simply needed time to become still again. The old gardener looked at Elias and said, "Your mind is just like this water. When you keep stirring it, when you keep feeding every fear, when you keep fighting every thought, everything becomes cloudy. You can no longer see clearly. Your worries, your regrets, your fears about tomorrow, all rise to the surface, just like the dirt in this bucket. And when your mind is constantly moving, you lose the ability to see the truth clearly." Elias listened without saying a word. For the first time in years, something inside him finally made sense. He had spent so much of his life trying to control every thought, trying to fight every fear, trying to solve every problem. But maybe he never needed to fight so hard. Maybe he simply needed to become still. The old gardener continued, Peace does not come when life becomes perfect. It comes when you learn to remain calm. Even when life isn't perfect, the storm outside may not be in your control, but the storm inside your mind is something you can learn to quiet. The next morning, Elias returned to his cabin. His problems were still there. His challenges had not disappeared. His life had not suddenly become easier, but something inside him had changed. Every morning, before the world became busy, Elias walked quietly to the lake. He sat beside the water. He closed his eyes, and he took slow, deep breaths. He was no longer running away from his thoughts. He was learning to understand them instead of fearing them. For the first time in years, Elias was no longer searching for peace. He was learning how to create it. Days passed, then weeks, then months. Elias continued his small daily practices. He learned that real change does not happen in one single moment. It happens quietly, through small choices repeated every day. Some mornings were peaceful. Some mornings were difficult. There were still moments when old worries returned. There were still times when fear tried to take control again. But whenever that happened, Elias remembered the bucket. He remembered the lesson. Even muddy water can become clear again. Every evening before going to sleep, Elias opened a small journal, and he wrote down 3 things he was grateful for: a beautiful sunrise, a kind conversation, a peaceful moment beside the lake. Simple things that he once ignored, because his mind was always searching for what was missing. Slowly, the way Elias saw life began to change. The forest that once felt silent started feeling alive. The mornings that once felt empty started feeling meaningful. The same world had always been there, but now Elias was finally present enough to truly see it. He still had problems. He still faced difficult days. But problems no longer controlled his emotions. Fear no longer made every decision for him. His thoughts were no longer a prison. They became something he could observe and gently let go. Then, one autumn evening, the peaceful forest began to change. Dark clouds gathered above the mountains. The gentle wind became stronger. The calm lake started to shake. Birds flew away from the trees. Something powerful was approaching. A storm was coming. The rain began to fall heavily. The tall trees moved violently in the wind. Branches broke from the force of the storm. The villagers looked toward the dark sky with fear. Everyone searched for safety. Everyone wanted the storm to end. But among all the chaos, one person remained calm: Elias. Not because he was not afraid, not because the storm was small, but because he had spent months learning how to calm the storm inside himself. The storm grew stronger. Rain covered the forest paths. The wind shook the trees as if they might fall. The sound of thunder echoed through the mountains. People were frightened. Families searched for each other. Children held tightly to their parents. Everyone was looking for a way to stay safe. But Elias took a deep breath. He looked around at the fear and confusion surrounding him, and instead of running away, he stepped forward. He helped the villagers move away from danger. He guided children through the storm. He supported the elderly as they carefully walked along the difficult paths, while others saw only chaos. Elias saw what needed to be done. Hours passed, and slowly, the storm began to disappear. The dark clouds moved away. The heavy rain became gentle. The first rays of sunlight returned to the forest. The same place that looked frightening moments before became peaceful again. The villagers gathered around Elias. Their faces were filled with gratitude and curiosity. One person finally asked, "How did you stay so calm? How did you stay so strong when everything around you was falling apart?" Elias looked toward the calm lake. He saw his reflection clearly in the water. Then he smiled softly and said, "Because I learned something. The storm outside is not always the hardest storm we face. The hardest storms are the ones we create inside our own minds." This story is not only about Elias. It is about every person who has ever felt lost, every person who has searched for peace outside themselves, because life will always bring storms. There will be failures, there will be uncertainty, there will be moments when you question yourself. You cannot control every wave, you cannot stop every storm, but you can train your mind to remain peaceful when they arrive. Start with something simple. Give yourself 5 quiet minutes every morning. No phone, no distractions, just sit, breathe, and allow yourself to be present. When fear appears, ask yourself, is this problem happening right now? Or am I suffering because of a thought? Sometimes, the biggest battles we fight exist only inside our imagination. Our minds can create storms, even when the world around us is completely calm. Before you sleep, write down 3 things you are grateful for. They do not need to be big. A smile, a peaceful moment, a person who cares about you. Small moments of gratitude. Teach your mind to notice the beauty that already exists around you. Remember, peace is not a life without problems. A peaceful person is not someone who never faces difficulties. A peaceful person is someone who learns how to stay calm, even when difficulties appear. Just like the muddy water in the bucket, your mind also becomes unclear when you keep stirring it. Sometimes, you do not need another answer. You do not need another distraction. You simply need a moment of stillness. The world will always keep moving. People will always have opinions. Challenges will always come and go. But your inner peace is something you can protect. Every breath you take, every moment you choose patience, every time you choose calm over fear, you become stronger. So the next time your mind feels heavy, remember Elias, remember the bucket, remember that even the most disturbed water can become clear again. You do not have to solve your entire life today. Sometimes, you only need to stop stirring and give yourself time to become peaceful. Your journey toward peace begins with one small choice, a quiet moment, a calm breath, a little patience with yourself, because the peace you are searching for may not be waiting somewhere in the future. It may already be inside you, waiting to be discovered. If this story gave you even a small moment of peace, share it with someone who might need this reminder today. And if you want more stories that teach life lessons, subscribe and join us on this journey of growth, wisdom, and self-discovery. Remember, a calm mind is not created by a perfect life. It is created by a peaceful heart.